We're here today with Andrew Appel of the Four Nations Ensemble. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. You're in beautiful upstate New York, and we're not really in the Hall of Mirrors of Versailles.
Well, I can't think of a more appropriate backdrop to the program and our interview today. So it's a kick to see all those beautiful chandeliers and mirrors and know that the gardens are just outside those big French doors.
Absolutely. So, Four Nations Ensemble has performed in the past at Raritan River Music Festival, but it's been quite a while. It was certainly pre-pandemic. So we're thrilled that you all will be coming back. And I think the forces that you have coming are even greater than those from the last time you performed. Can you just give the listening audience a little sense of who the musicians are that will be joining you for the May 6th concert and what to expect from the program?
Yes, we have very happy memories of our performing with you in the past, and it's been, certainly more than a decade since we were down there. I actually have and treasure the recording of that concert. It was really lovely. It was with Christofini and Loretta, the members of the core ensemble that have been playing together for more than 30 years.
Wow.
But the time has been so long that we're coming with a new generation of players, actually, and how extraordinary it is to be playing now with a group of people, with few exceptions, who are young enough to be my children, and actually every once in a while one that's young enough to be my grandchild. And so with us, we're coming with the singer in the ensemble, Pascal Baudin, who we love working with her, and we love it that though we're an instrumental ensemble fundamentally, that we have a soprano who is a regular member of the ensemble and comes to every concert we play. For Baroque music, if you don't include a vocal music, a secular cantata, then you really aren't giving the picture of what people felt would be a full and complete program in the 17th and the 18th century. And Pascal will come and sing one of the most dynamic cantatas of the entire repertory of non-religious cantatas of the Baroque period, Medea.
Hmm.
Uh,
And she's
and
been pretty famous recently with the opera at the Met and all this other
uh,
Medea.
Medea has been
Yeah.
very famous. Yes, they did the Carabini, which was a showpiece for Maria Callas. She was the one who really put that in the repertory. Um, the Medea that we're doing, the actual story, only takes us through the moment in which Medea burns down the palace where Jason is being married. It doesn't go through the slaughter of her own children. And we think that's,
Darn.
since we're playing so close to Mother's Day, we thought better to leave that out. But Pascal is a very dynamic singer who really mines the emotional and allusion content of any text, and we love having her with us all the time. And We're being joined with by Scott Pauley, who's playing lute, because the
Yes.
continuo section, if you want, the structural accompanying section of all Baroque music, is very much complete when you have a harpsichord and lute.
Mm.
And the difference between the two plucked instruments is very enriching. Um, in addition to that, we have Chloe Fetter, who is a fairly recent graduate from the Juilliard Early Music Division, which has turned into something extremely important in America now.
Right.
And she's just a beautiful, poetic, and virtuoso player. and David Ross playing flute, uh, and then Kieran Campbell, who is Chloe's husband, playing continua with us. And Kieran is just a most inspiring cellist. So it's an ensemble that crosses the generation gaps, and we don't seem to be having any problems with that gap at all. I know that they really inspire me with their vital, youthful commitment to this music, and I'm hoping that I inspire them as well.
No, that's really wonderful. I wanted to ask about Scott and the lute that he'll be bringing. Do you know what instrument he actually uses for this music?
I think that he'll bring a fiorbo, which is a lute with bass strings, and it allows him an expanse of register to really be a complete accompaniment instrument. And there'll be times in which the harpsichord alone will be accompanying the soloist. There'll be times when the lute alone, and then there are the majority of the times then he and I play together.
Yeah, to hear this music in the church, which is from the early 19th century, I think is going to be so spectacular. The acoustics in there are gorgeous, and to hear music in a more intimate space like that instead of in a big concert hall, I think brings people more toward what the original sound would have been like.
Oh, and for much of this music, though, the program we're bringing you is a program that exists between the two worlds of the private music salon and the public concert hall. But the public concert hall was a room that at most sat 250 to 400 people, as opposed to a modern concert hall today where we get 750 to 2,000.
Right.
And the really beautiful compositions we're playing are filled with subtleties and tiny little details that, well, there's that expression, God is in the details. Well, if you have a room with 1,500 people, God's pretty hard to find. And in a resonant church building, God will be floating all around the God of this broken music. But this is a period of time, our program, in which music which had been centered in the homes and hands of the aristocracy with their beautiful palaces and beautiful music rooms. There it involved a private audience of maybe 20 people. If you were lucky, you were invited to hear some of this. But at that time, at the same time, in Paris was developing the first public subscription concert series called the Spiritual Concerts, les concerts spirituels. And they were called spiritual concerts because they were run during Lent, when the opera house was closed, and you had all these musicians who were out of work. And so this was a series of concerts that always included a certain amount of motets of sacred music, but then started to include virtuoso cellists, flute players, violinists to play concertos as well. Ultimately, Mozart would have his appearances in Paris on Les Concerts Spirituels, and Boccherini, and all the very famous international performers were part of this public concert thing. And there, starting maybe with 200 people, ultimately, concerts would have 800 people in the audience.
Wow.
And it was a paying audience that had different taste than the audience of Madame de Maintenon or Madame de Pompadour at Versailles. But our composers really live in that period where they existed in those two worlds.
Mm-hmm. And these composers, were they being hired by the court, or were they being hired by the church, or who are their
I,
main patrons?
The main patrons, for instance, the main patron of Couperin, who was Francois Couperin le Grand, the great Couperin, and that's why we call our program Les Grands, because all of these composers were the most extraordinary representatives of their instruments, whether it's Blavet on the flute, Clérambault for the chamber cantata, Leclerc for the violin, and Barrière for the new cello, which was taking over the affections of the music public. They were all les grands. Couperin himself was very connected to both the court, where he was the music teacher for several members of the nobility, of royalty, in fact, and and also the church, because he and his family had held the positions at the church called Saint Gervais, which was an important center of religious music. So he exists church and court, but Leclerc is really a public musician. He's a matinee idol. He's an extraordinary Paganini-like violinist who creates this magical, how should I put it, spell-like world of sound out of his violin to the thrill of everyone. And unlike Couperin, who probably bent over backwards to say the right things to the right people, Leclerc basically told everyone to get lost. He was a big ego, a fragile, I think, ego, and an extraordinary devil-like virtuoso. And he was difficult to deal with. Typical of so many matinee idols and great virtuosi who have, demanding, crusty personalities. And so he did. In fact, he was ultimately murdered in front of his house. So not everyone liked him. Someone like Blavet was one of the very early, also public performers who performed at Les Concerts Spirituels. But his music has the gentility of what they wanted at court. This kind of noble and subtle expression of his feelings. Beautiful, just like the Hall of Mirrors behind you. His music had all the subtlety, the beautiful textures of the marble columns, pilasters that we see as part of the Hall of Mirrors. Leclerc he's very public in the way he deals with things. He is much more a prophet of Paganini, and Blavet much more in the world of Francois Couperin, the exquisite, elegant expression of feelings.
I certainly can't wait for this concert coming up. What we've been doing, because we know that it's not yet possible for everyone to come back to live in-person concerts, we will be videotaping the concert and with the highest quality audio, and it will be available for the week following the concert.
Oh, that's great. We'll have to live up to the microphones.
Absolutely. Well, all of the details about the concert are at the raritanrivermusic.org website. And of course, we have links there directly to Four Nations website. We have a video sample on the Raritan River Music website. And so you'll be able to find out all the details about the concert, about the music, and of course, order tickets as well.
Well, of course, the best aspect of any of this is playing for an audience. And we'll love bringing this particular program, which really has all masterpieces for the soloists who are going to be performing. We'll love sharing this with your audience.
Great, great. And for those who want to get up close and personal with the musicians. There'll be a reception after the concert where you can ask all the details that you're dying to ask about the music as well.
And I understand that I'll give an introduction to the program before the program. Is that not the case?
Absolutely. However you want to set it up, it will be part of the evening itself. So this coming Saturday, May 6th at 7:30 at Clinton Presbyterian Church in beautiful downtown Clinton, New Jersey in Hunterdon County. Andy, thanks a million. And thanks to Cooper, your dog, for joining us today as well. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes.